Greetings, comrades, and welcome to Behind the Songs. And today we are discussing Demagogue. There's a lot to discuss when it comes to Demagogue, but we must start with Parasocial. The way I came up with Parasocial was I was watching a special by Bo Burnham, and he was doing a bit, and an audience member said, "I love you." He said, "No, you don't. You just love the idea of me, but please keep buying my shit forever." And then goes on to, say how, that's called a parasocial relationship. It's a one-way relationship that's ultimately destructive, where only one person is having the experience, and it also extends to leaders and how we worship them, and not just celebrities and role models in general, but specifically to presidents, and that translates to Demagogue. And the way the instrumental came about was basically I had a really, really strong affinity for that opening chord progression for Demagogue, and I wanted to extend it much longer than it was, but Demagogue was already such a long song, so we decided, why not extend it to its own introduction track, so that way we can elongate it to its own dedicated piece. And together with the original arrangements that I had for the progression, Ryan, our producer, Ryan Martinez, he wrote the atmosphere and the ambience that you hear in the background to the track. So all of this just adds to a really dynamic, progressive, momentous build that really creates that thunderous opening eruption that is the start of Demagogue. And I think that's why it has such a massive impact live, and pretty much it always starts off with a circle bit. The textbook definition of a demagogue is a political leader who seeks support by appealing to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people rather than by using rational argument. They rhetorically exploit for political purposes in a way calculated to appeal to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people. So, and all of this describes the Trump administration perfectly. From the day he came out and announced his run for presidency in 2015, he was declaring immigrants rapists, and from day one he's made it clear what his agenda is: to blame and scapegoat people of color and people of marginalized communities, and to do nothing about the actual economic injustice that exists. And the lyrics during this hook here are expressing that sentiment. Don't be fooled by deceptive demagogues, always selling people giant fucking cons. Don't you know they've been lying all along? To them it's just a game and they play you like a pawn. And yeah, that sums it up right there. He uses xenophobia and racism and fear to get you wrapped up in the bullshit, make you turn on your fellow working class, your fellow proletariat, and and buy into beliefs that we should, get rid of immigrants, we should not let people come here, and all the fucked up shit that comes with what the demagogue proposes. Meanwhile, he's basically like transferring all the funds from the government into his pocket. All of those reasons explain why it's important to know and understand and recognize what a demagogue is, and how Trump and his types embody that, and how dangerous it is on not just our culture, but our well-being, our infrastructure, our ability to take care of ourselves. Look at how we're handling this pandemic during this crisis. Like there is no other moment in history to compare this to, and it's because we're being led by a man who cares nothing other than to enrich himself and to blame and scapegoat others, whether they're minorities or past presidents. Sometimes those two fall in the same category. Demagogue was a song like a lot of the songs on A People that existed for a long time before finally getting polished and recorded onto A People. Started writing it back in 2015 and went through many different layers and processes of recording it as a demo and trying to get it down. And it wasn't until I met Ryan and started recording this album with him that we really polished this one up and it saw its full light. So this took me 3 years and went from 15 minutes to about 9 minutes, if you don't count Parasocial as part of the intro. This song is also the only song that our old synth player Brandon Haddix actually contributed backing vocals to. So this song has Chandler on vocals, me on vocals, Haddix on vocals, and it has Josh Miller from Amir on drums, because this was one of 3 tracks that we had to hire him for of the album. And it had Ryan's writing on it. So this song was so great because it was so collaborative and collective. It had me writing on it, it had Josh Miller, it had Ryan, it had Brandon's vocals, my vocals, Chandler's vocals. So it just had like a lot of mix of personalities coming together on this track, and really showcased like the collective effort that we were trying to do and make this project. Not just one individual, but a bunch of people in and outside of the band coming together to make really solid, transcendent material. And this song was really the best on the album that did that. So yeah, this is a song that I think is our best because there's a lot of collaboration. Ryan wrote a good handful of riffs in the beginning and end of the song. He wrote the guitar solo, and I think this is one of those songs that just like really embodies the Anima Effect because it's our collective, collaborative talent being showcased on this track, and it's our embodiment of our message into one and our moment in time, which is basically a rebellion against Trump and right-wing policies and right-wing attitudes and free market capitalism and just this inherent belief in just the cycle of money and bullshit. And Demagogue embodies all of that. I think that's why we have never taken it off the set list since it's been on, except for shows that are just too short. We always close with that song. We always keep the t-shirts in stock that have the Demagogue lyrics because people like it. It's our top-selling shirt. It's just, I think it's the embodiment of the Anima Effect. It's the penultimate song that we have, even with our new material. I think it's still, because it's so relevant. It's not just good. I think it's very relevant. The topics, the lyrics, they grow more true every day under this administration. The core meaning of the song's bottom line is this: our democracy that we love so much in this country has been bought out by a group of billionaires over the course of several decades, and has gotten so bad and extreme that it's resulted in some reality TV show joke host of a fucking demagogue and Donald Trump basically trying to turn our country into a proto-fascist dictator state while using the old fantasy of the American dream of getting rich and famous and climbing up from the bottom to the top as if he ever did, while using that fantasy to trick us all into buying into his system of hate and injustice that just keeps us complacent and at the bottom.
Definitely my favorite song of the probably between that one and Cypher. Demagogue, that was like our big finale every show.
Yeah.
Like right before that, we had a huge build up to Parasocial, and that was like when the whole band came together and was like, alright,
Yeah, that moment always gave such big chills on stage. Like,
Yeah.
The fucking crowd roars and like the live crowd does too. And
Yeah,
it's very empowering.
And I remember our first Sloth Fest. During Parasocial, there was a huge mosh pit going. Like, we're not doing anything.
Just a circle
We're just
fucking
standing
starts,
here waiting
dude.
for the build up.
Yeah.
And And then as soon as the song starts, just everybody goes fucking wild.
Yeah.
Like, that's gotta be one of my favorite memories
Brandon
of
was
that
talking
night.
about that night
Yeah,
too.
and the crazy thing too about that is my brother was there. He's not even a metalhead, but he was a part of that fucking circle thing, dude.
I remember
I was like, that's so nuts, dude.
Yeah, like, I don't know, the only lead that I really had, or at least my favorite one, was definitely in Demagogue. Just ending the entire show with that whole tapping section. I don't know, that entire song is just so much fun to play. It's always been fun.
So Ascend is an idea that Brandon Hinkle actually came up with when we were finishing our first album, and we wanted to have a way that the album looped into itself perfectly, so that way it represented a perfect 12 constellation movement of the zodiac, of it repeating, and so the ending had to fit perfectly into the beginning, and Brandon came up with the idea of doing that, and I brought it to Ryan, and Ryan essentially just arranged this little piece here that just connects the end of Demagogue to the beginning of Descend and transitions the pattern to flow melodically and rhythmically, and so that way it has a nice little end and then resets perfectly into the beginning of the album. At least that was our attempt. So thanks for listening, you guys, if you made it all the way through and everything. Thanks to our patrons. Consider signing up. We love you. Anima Effect forever.